Meghan stands shoulder to shoulder with German president's wife as the Queen watches him become the country's first leader to lay a wreath at the Cenotaph in historic act of reconciliation marking 100 years since the end of World War I. The Duchess of Sussex attended her first ever official Armistice Day service at the Cenotaph as she stood shoulder to shoulder with the wife of Germany's president. In a historic act of reconciliation, German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier laid a wreath during a poignant ceremony at the Cenotaph, marking the first time a German leader has ever taken part in the proceedings. The Queen, 92, had asked Prince Charles to once again take on her duties as she observed the service from a nearby balcony alongside the Duchess of Cambridge and the Duchess of Cornwall. Fulfilling those duties, the Prince of Wales laid a wreath at a memorial service for the Welsh Guards on the centenary of the armistice. Meghan, 37, looked on solemnly from a different balcony as her husband, the Duke of Sussex, and several other senior members of the royal family laid wreaths in central London. Despite her newfound status, Meghan was positioned separately from the Queen and Kate and Camilla, both of whom are considered more senior family members. Appearing at her first armistice service since becoming a fully fledged royal, she instead took on an ambassadorial role, standing next to Elke Bender, partner of the German president. Mr. Steinmeier's presence was a symbol of the friendship that exists between the two countries today, a representative of the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport said. The service on Sunday was also attended by soldiers past and present. The Welsh Guards regimental adjutant, Colonel Tom Binns, said it was a huge privilege to be joined by Charles with everything else he has got on today. He added, "We remain incredibly grateful to him for the time and energy that he spends with us. We are very lucky to have him as our colonel." Families of soldiers were also invited to the service, which was held in the Guards' Chapel before the laying of the wreaths. The prince also met bereaved families of military personnel. 5 life-sized bronze statues made out of captured cannons stand at the Guards Memorial in Horse Guards Parade, each representing different regiments. Charles arrived at the memorial by car and stepped out wearing a pinstriped suit, overcoat and bowler hat. He laid the wreath at the foot of the memorial before briefly pausing and looking up at the statues while the Welsh national anthem was played by a marching band. Other senior royals including Prince William, Prince Harry and the Princess Royal also paid their respects at the Cenotaph as they laid a series of wreaths. The Duke of Cambridge, the Duke of Sussex, the Duke of York, the Earl of Wessex, the Princess Royal, the Duke of Kent and Prince Michael of Kent all laid tributes to Britain's veterans. Later, the Duke of York arrived in Belfast to attend a service at St Anne's Cathedral for the centenary of Armistice Day, around 4 p.m. The event is happening alongside services in Dublin, Glasgow and Cardiff for Armistice 100. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump joined French President Emmanuel Macron and Russian President Vladimir Putin at an Armistice Day ceremony in Paris, along with more than 60 other world leaders. The world leaders were pictured standing side by side in the rain at the Arc de Triomphe to pay tribute to those who died in the First World War, 100 years to the day since the guns fell silent. Back in London, Prime Minister Theresa May and Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn also laid wreaths at the foot of the Whitehall Memorial, along with Liberal Democrat leader Sir Vince Cable, Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt and Speaker of the House of Commons John Bercow. The traditional 2-minute silence was held at 11 a.m. and was marked by the chiming of Big Ben, despite the ongoing renovations to the clock tower. The 13.7-ton bell has been silent since August 2017 since works began, except for ringing in New Year 2018. It has been fitted with a custom-built electronic mechanism built to power the 200-kilogram striking hammer to ensure it can still sound for important national events while the clockwork undergoes vital repairs. The end of the silence was marked by cannon fire and the last post sounded by the buglers of the Royal Marines before the wreaths were laid. An hour later, war veterans, descendants and grateful members of the public marched through the streets of London as part of a nation's thank you to those who fought in the Great War. More than 10,000 people from across the country joined together on the Mall and made their way around St. James Park for Remembrance Sunday. Among the oldest taking part in the march is Private Donald Smith, 98, who joined current members of the Queen's Own Highlanders, and Jeff Watkins, 97, who traveled from California in the United States to participate. At the same time as the march, people were encouraged to ring bells around the world, to replicate the spontaneous outpouring of relief that took place in 1918. As news of peace spread on Armistice Day, church bells, which had fallen silent across the UK during the First World War, rang out in celebration. Culture Secretary Jeremy Wright said, "On the centenary of the armistice, we will come together as a nation to stand in silence and honor the fallen of all conflicts." Over the past 4 years, we have told the story of the First World War and the unique generation who served so bravely and made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. Today, we will also give thanks for all those that returned and the peace they fought so hard for. Defense Secretary Gavin Williamson said, "To be at the Cenotaph on Remembrance Sunday is a privilege and provides us with the opportunity for reflection along with millions of people in countries that continue to be strong allies. The First World War touched communities across the globe and I commend all those who have helped us remember the First World War generation. We will never forget them or the sacrifice of thousands of British and Commonwealth troops who have given their lives in other conflicts." Among the thousands paying their respects was Lieutenant Commander Sarah Bligh of the Royal Navy. She said it was her grandmother's stories of the war that inspired her to join the forces. "The thought of it being 100 years is really poignant. I've got a photograph of my great-grandfather taken 100 years ago to celebrate them all coming back from the war," she said. "It's incredible to be here 100 years on." The ceremony will be followed by the annual Royal British Legion's Veterans Parade. Big Ben will sound again today at 12:30 p.m., joining bells across the country and the rest of the world, an event to echo the celebrations of November 11, 1918 as news of the armistice spread. In the afternoon, 10,000 members of the public, chosen by ballot, filed past the Cenotaph for a nation's thank you. The People's Procession. Josh Marr, 18, is one of 100 National Citizen Service volunteers who marched. Acts of remembrance have taken place across Northern Ireland on the centenary of Armistice Day. Democratic Unionist leader Arlene Foster and Irish Government Minister Heather Humphreys laid wreaths at the Cenotaph in Enniskillen. Hundreds gathered in the narrow streets to watch a musical procession including a brass band and bagpipes before representatives of the 4 main churches in the town led a service. Remembrance Sunday in the Co-Fermanagh town has an added poignancy after a provisional IRA bomb devastated the event in 1987. The Irish president-elect attended the Armistice Day centenary commemorations at Dublin's Glenvine Cemetery on Sunday. Michael D. Higgins, and his wife Sabina, along with Government Representative Minister for Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht Joseph Madigan paid tribute to the memory of the Irish men and women who died in the First World War. Over 47 countries were represented at the service, and officials laid wreaths at the Irish military plot, before the last post was played and the Irish flag returned to full mast.